All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of Cult of Rig, season 1. So, very quickly, because it keeps coming up, and if you. Oh, this is the mobile layout. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you might have missed out on these. But long story short, if you go on cultofrig.com and you look at resources, this is where, when things get in a good enough state to share and not just be confusing, I upload to Google Drive and then share in here the files for the seasons. So I picked from episode 8, the last one we had, cleaned up the scene a little bit, which is what we're gonna start from today, and uploaded it here. So if you want to catch up to the stream with something that is identical to what I'm using, just pick that one up, or if you want to download it to dissect it, that's where it is. And yep, go to freak.com and it should be pretty easy to find what you want. And this is what we are going to use Desmos for some graphing today. Without further ado, let us get into the actual rigging proper. So, what do we want to do? We have, well, I've cleaned the graph and I've cleaned the names. I have very simply added some colors just to distinguish elements to the top of the hierarchy for the various components. So the sketch is in red because we want to delete it. And then the global, which is our it's our front-loaded part for the foot roll and so on, is in there, and the foot is here. So you got green and blue, or whatever, off green, off blue, those will be called lilac. So yeah, that's if it looks slightly different than what you saw, if there's a jump between episodes, it's literally just me cleaning up the graph, renaming things and all of that. Normally I don't do off-screen work. I want to stream everything, but I've done this kind of cleanup before in the pilot season. There's really nothing to it other than renaming stuff and laying out notes. So let's move on from that. What we want to get done today is start on an actual proper leg component. I would like to get rid of the sketch. And last episode I mentioned adding somebody asked, and I say, yeah, add as homework, add the up vector to the IK if you want. Somebody actually, literally, 2 people literally did homework and sent me homework, which is pretty amazing. I'm glad some people take this seriously. You are the reason why I do this. So, what do we want to do from there? We have another scene, which is what I was using the last time. I have extracted the expression for some copy and paste love. But let's get a component done. So, get us a couple groups. For the leg, we'll most likely need both input and output, and we'll stay very simple with these. Surprisingly hard to type with a microphone in your face. I'll have to learn that. There must be some trick to the trade of that, because people game for hours and hours with a microphone literally in their face. So, like component, input and output. Do I want to auto add all of this stuff as it gets created is the question now. Probably not. I would like to first create myself some stuff. So add to graph on create, if you're wondering, is what you want to turn on and off to get new nodes automatically in there. I would also like not to have shapes, please. And all of this stuff is pinned. I'm not a fan of pinning the node editor nodes. It comes with its own set of problems, but I also don't want this thing to get discombobulated all the time. So control, let's not do the guide just yet. And to the control for the IK leg, we probably don't really need to add anything. So this control is most likely just going to host the mechanics for it. Now the input for the leg will definitely require that we get this global after it's been rolled and all of that. And this is where having the sketch is convenient. So I must have the IK handle hidden somewhere, I'm sure. So we don't care for that. Ankle IK. Must have nested. So leg global. It might be straight up parented. There you go. So because we've done a straight parenting with 0, it's pretty easy if you look for just the IK handle to figure out, okay, this is what we were using before. This should be working fine. So yeah, we like these, we're gonna keep it. Somebody, nah, I don't have a Twitch bot, so there's no Twitch commands, but uptime is practically nothing. You were maybe 6 minutes late. Somebody in chat was trying to figure out how long we've been going for, I guess. So this is literally just a shape. Diagnostics. Well, this is the transform actually. There's a shape underneath, which is this cube for diagnostic. So let's start getting us an input for the ankle. Normally I will not call it a straight up ankle, but so that will be our IK end, and it will be the word end. So end word, which also sounds funny, which is also plus. Let me make that a little bit easier to read, or maybe not. Oh, okay. Using charcoal in this case, so it doesn't matter. And that is just a create attribute, if you couldn't see it, because the text is too small. It's the usual create attribute thing, because by default you cannot from the UI create matrix or angle attributes. You need to use the command. So now this one we want to start getting in, and it should have an end word. Yes, it does. So we would also like to get the start, because we'll like the heat from somewhere. And I think that right now I will be using it for something. So I must already have something that emulates that, I am sure. And we'll find it. Actually, it will be a simple, probably SRT. Let global start. There you go. This is where having a semi-decent convention of any sort helps a lot. So we do have that, and we do have it in the leg global. I could transmit this forward, or I could just get a leg start and hook them to the same thing. Because the body will go into both the global and the IK, there's no real need to push it through when all I want is this hip position, which is not determined by this. There is no strong reason to push through the leg global to go there. If anything, and we'll get more into these when we'll do parallel evaluation and stuff like that, but if anything, the more you decouple early the components, the more chances you have to end up evaluating on multiple cores. So next thing we want to do is, I called it end word, but actually that would be in the hit, would be in the start word. We already have an end word. So we want the start of the chain in word space, and it should be in here. That's cool. We are emulating it with this, which is a straight up matrix composition, so that we have some translate and so on. So that's all we need for now for the input. We say we want the limited ankle, which we did keep tabs on, so that's the rolled ankle. That one we want to push through the output. So global limited ankle, it's going out to the foot. So that's actually what we want. We already have one, and that one does depend on the... I can do it. That does depend on the global foot, so global leg. Let me get a little bit more space here. So we should be able to use that right away. Now, what do we want to do next? We want definitely hip, knee, and ankle for the IK, and we should be able to do it with 3 transforms. Let's get rid of the search. And sure, let's keep all the nodes for now and move these. I'd say probably up there, not under the camera if possible. And save the scene because you never know. So, what next? We want 3 transforms to get this done. You could, like, usually you might want more, but there's no real reason to bother just yet, because something that's pretty useful is dividing the leg by the start of the femur, the end of the femur, which is aligned to that, so it's literally just the length. Then you have the knee rotation, which gets you the start of the tibia and the end of the ankle co-aligned. So you get a cleaner separation between these items around the knee, so you get 2. And you can very easily add one in the middle that literally just averages the 2, or you could use half the angle because we're solving the V-chain IK ourselves, and it's trivial to do that kind of stuff. It is super useful. So these will be Lego hip SRT. You could also call these, like if you use joints, or if you wanted a simpler convention, you could literally just call these, you know, S01 for SRT01 or J01 or whatever, because this doesn't necessarily need to be a leg, so it'd be easier for you to rename it to part of an arm or something like that later if you wanted. If you're rigging this as a generic component, I guess it will be a lot easier. In this case, we don't care for that just yet, so we're not gonna bother. Yeah, so I'm naming these like joints, but hip is fine. Let's right away do the dual thing I talked about. So that will be okay. I also have figured out a way to dodge the parenting bug, which is if you always parent only with your mouse over the viewport, it does not trigger. So need to make that muscle memory. The surprising thing is that it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't in other views. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we do want this to respect attributes coming from elsewhere, so we need the length of the femur, the length of the tibia. Where would we have those? Probably, if anywhere, in the sketch. So there's also notes, by the way, on some of the nodes. You don't necessarily need to care about those, or you don't need to do the same. I just find it useful to occasionally drop a note in there. It's pretty easy to write yourself a script that will find all the notes in the scene. So the good thing about the sketch is that you can reuse parts of it. So these settings we can probably reuse. Yep, I reckon we can reuse this 1-to-1. So, and let's go for, we're using config parameters for now. This is not an exposed anything, so we don't need to be pedantic about the name. Let's remove it from the sketch because we want to redo all of these anyway, so we really don't care much about the sketch just yet. So I think we also have to extend our foot component, the global, a little bit, because right now I don't know. Let's have a look, because we do need the length of the leg. Yeah, tibia length, tarsi length, toe length, femur length. So we do want to make sure that we do reuse those. And right now I think that what we're doing is just literally using the parameters to solve. And part of what we want to do is prepare these to be guidable. Now, I could make them pass through the output, or I could decide that for the time being it's okay if they're just configuration stuff. They're always supposed to be constant, so maybe I allied passing through the passing through input to output just to transmit them. You know, it depends on what kind of contract you want to form for people to follow or for yourself to follow. In this case, I'm gonna not gonna say cheat my way out of it, but yeah, I will cheat my way out of it. And yeah, for now, we can trivially, as long as you know we know that the config and the inputs and outputs, they're always on the same edge of the boundaries. It's the very input of the component. So I'd say there's a certain limit to how, when you're prototyping, only when you're prototyping, to how rigidly you want to respect these things, like the rules that you set for yourself. This is one of those cases where you go, okay, don't need to be that rigid. So this one is not what we want at all. This is from another component. What we want is these 4 items, and they should come in here. I'll have to pin things as I add them. Really not fond of these, but you know, we do what we must. The hip start is gonna be a very simple start word to transform. So what is it? Decompose matrix to get SRT out of the matrix with the factory nodes. Come on. I dared. So if you sleep and you deselect something and you then press the shortcut to change what attributes you see, like your entire graph in an undoable fashion will collapse or expand to that. You get used to it. So translate, rotate and scale, which of course are differently ordered in every node. We're not gonna bother with the renaming for this just yet. This is possibly incredibly boring, but we gotta do this part. So femur end, we want that. What axis do we want to work on? We say that we're gonna line to the word, so our Z is gonna be down this way, which means we want the roll to be down the Z. So this is not yeah, this is not a bad way to go, which means that we want to get these in translate Z. Then tibia start will be 0 under that. We only care for an angle here. And the tibia end will take the tibia length. Yeah, someone will say it helps consolidate the ideas. Yeah, look, I'm doing it because I think it's useful. So it's a lot of moving nodes around. I don't know if this is slightly less or slightly more exciting than watching someone write code. For most people, we'll figure it out. So now we could put diagnostics in there, like we could put some object underneath. We probably should, in fact. Let's not be silly. So that's a shape. I don't care for the shape any longer for the config, because these can be wherever. But I do care to get it possibly not up there. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I never had that bug where it was giving me interleave line colors. Add that to the list, and we can recycle these. Or nope, not that one. Is it? Okay. For a second I was like, is this non-selectable perchance? So, oh yeah, that's another interesting one. For those that don't know, what I'm doing here is parent dash add dash s that will take a shape and parent it to something, just the shape. Come on. Okay. Whatever, we'll leave with these. It's not reordering it, and I don't remember why we'll be doing something like that. Okay. It doesn't like me to reorder shapes, probably because it wants to prevent me from accidentally parenting them, but it will be okay with me reordering the transforms around it. It's fine, I'll take it. So let's go for the Maya convention standard thingy. And I don't think this works well for multi, but we can try it. Nah. So, start femoran. Oh boy, okay, that's the other one. It's gonna be confusing as all to have both. We'll need to scale those down. Anyway, this is definitely not exciting, but we don't care for the femur end actually, we care for the tibia start though. We don't really need to diagnose the femur end. And we do care to see what's going on with the ankle. So this is femur end, yes. The only one, whoa, okay, because it's instancing that. So, is that one of my use ever Maya's map node? Which one is the map node? So actually, let's redo that song and dance. I don't want to go and dig up other commands, because when it's like this is instancing the shapes, which is good and bad. Like it's, yeah. Now, so okay, now we have some sort of diagnostic, which is good. And the other thing we said we wanted to do is get these to a more manageable size. So yeah, if you don't know what it means, it's like when Maya instances a shape, it will show up under multiple parents, but it really is the same shape. So let's call it diagnostic cubes here. Let's call it something that is distinct from the rest because we're using it in more than one place. All right, that was the super boring bit. The next boring bit, slightly less boring, is we take our implementation for the sorry, the implementation for the IK, and we start doing work. So the first thing we want to do is get the direction of this thing. And we did it with a simple aim. It didn't give us up vectoring, but that's okay, because that's one of the things we want to do today. And in the simplest terms, we should be able to... Oh, I really want to reorder these things. We should be able to... Oh, let me see if I can. I need a mouse for this. We should be able to very quickly do... fix the up vectoring part. So... Alright, better. And now I don't want to see the shapes, thank you. So, moving on, we can get ourselves a very simple group, a transform, and that is going to be our aim buffer. This is part of the sketching, if you want, where you go, okay, just name it something that's easily recognizable for you. Eventually, you know, I know already where this is going to end, which is going to be SRT buffer in this part. But we don't need to bother with that right away. We know that the position of that is probably going to supersede these. We want to, as the buffer for our AK, we want it to be hard bound to the hip. So we don't, actually we could parent it. Come on. Okay. So Maya has its glitches, but Wacom drivers are possibly worse. Be good to get the diagnostic with the leg right away. So, okay, we can still leave the silly name in there, but actually get it done right away. Now, the next thing we want to do is this rotate part, which is right now coming from the hips. That's what we want to replace with a name. And that, I'm not going to re-explain this for the umpteenth time, because we've been over this so many times. Angle between is just the angle between two vectors. So the way we want it, for now we're going to say, we're going to have an up axis for the system, for the angle between, which is going to be, well, in this case we want probably either y or minus y, and we'll see what the angle works out to be. And the vector represented by, which you can usually see when you have the IK handle, like this line, that's exactly the vector we want. It's the vector between our control here and the hip. So we want to take, is it plus minus average, and subtract, we want, I mean, the directions should be largely irrelevant, to be honest, because we can just change the order of operation. But let's say that we want this minus that, means it will go in this direction. So do we have, we should have the rolled ankle word and thingy. Yes, we do. So sorry for that. It's funny, streaming always gets my throat scratchy. So we want another decompose. And we do want to go, we said, and maybe it was the other way around. It doesn't really matter right now. Start. So if you're curious to know what you're doing, because this is a vector and it's starting from the center of the word, you can very quickly, just for the sake of diagnostics, look at what you're doing by just dumping it into the translation for this, and it will show you that you're doing something like that. So are there silly things going on here? No. So it's giving me this, and that makes sense because I've actually just added two things. I need to change this to a subtraction. So if you look at these of the word space, it very much looks like the actual vector that we have in there. So these looks like these, which means we're good. We got the order of the operations right. Would have been pretty embarrassing at this point not to. So this was purely for diagnostic purposes. So we want to go back. What were we using? Start word. Yep, this is the translate we want. So chat, let me know if anything at this point doesn't make sense, but I think this is like we're sort of applying the things that we've shown. So in many ways this is redo of things done before. So we want the angle between, I am gonna venture that we want, so this is this is a y-axis, so we're getting the angle between the y and this vector, which we'll get as a pretty long angle, but let's try it. Now that gets us the Euler rotate for these, and so angle between 1 and -6, this is fine because it should result in a 0. And as I go over there, you can see like this is the part, like it's freaking out because we're using axes that we don't care about, but don't worry about it just yet. We want to get these in the right angles. We could use axis angle, but don't really care for that just yet. Not in this case, but you can also get this output multiple times. So axis angle in this case, because we're looking at this, will probably give us these axes and this angle, which will be useful for the vectoring for the record, but we're not going to do that just yet. So we want some subset of what we're doing now. If we look at our rotation in Euler, sure, when you pop these up, hey Autodesk, if you're watching, if this is closed and you select something, when you pop these up, it's often empty until you deselect and reselect or somehow refresh that. So some of the UI callbacks here not well implemented for this widget. Anyway, so gimbal, let's have a look at what kind of rotation order we get. So aim buffer. Oh wow, by chance we actually, it works well in XYZ or XYZ, or is it something else? Beside the fact that, yeah, there you go. You can see that these will gimbal pretty early and it's not the axis we want anyway. So what it's doing is pointing the Y this way. We want to point the Z that way instead. So that will be, let's clean this up for a sec. And let's do it. Let's be methodical about this. So what we want, we're seeing the Y that way. We probably want, at a guess I will say we want the Z to go into the X. And that will establish these. You can actually, in this case, just, that should totally be the X. So yeah, the general direction is fine. And in this case, whatever it is doing here, nope. I could pre-multiply by something because we're going down the Z and this is actually getting us, if I move these down the Y, it will make more sense. Let's have a look at what we got here. I might just bite the bullet on these and run the op. So this is, ignore these things for a moment. So like heap, like if these, instead of being down, the Z here, which is the axis that we've elected to have as a row, was going down the Y, this will be fine. How do I want to deal with these? This is just a buffer. I could add, so when once we parent things under that, I could simply add 90 degrees to whatever we have, and that will get me in the right space, and then add our angle here. I might actually go for that because it's pretty close. Like it prevents us from having to mess with a million different things. Rotation order on these isn't terrible. So let's go for the simple solution, and then once we get some animation going on these, we'll see if we need to debug that space. Because for the most part, other than the fact that obviously, you know, there's no vectoring, so you're seeing it diverging on this plane. These should be like, this is a line, this is the part that we'll fix with the vectoring, and it's not terrible, it's getting the skew right. Sure, let's keep it like this for now. Okay, next thing we want to do, we're finally getting to the point where we go, okay, we did have an IK solver that we figured out, and so for that one there's an expression which I'm honestly not going to type bit by bit, and these buffers are triangle, which is right. So we want to first apply it to femur SRT. I might also want to save. Green screen is getting nasty. Yeah, light is changing. Man, there's street work outside. I hope you guys don't hear it too much. So it's probably getting brighter. I need to key up higher. Right, is it better? So you might see things like, if I do maybe that, no, it's not too bad. Anyway, if I basically change the lighting a lot by moving myself around, that can change the reaction of the green screen. I'm not in a studio environment. Lighting is in control. Like I'm working just after dawn. It changes pretty rapidly. Anyway, thanks for that. So the things we want to work with, I did save. I did pin some of my nodes down, so that's, yep. I don't care for these move settings and for the stool settings anymore. Let us see what we can do. We got another 20 minutes. We're doing a little bit less than I wanted to. We might have to deal with the numbers behind the pops and fixing that next stream, but whatever. So the one we do care about is the M buffer is fine. We want two angles to work, which is one is going to be on the hip and one is going to be on the tibia start. So let me get the expression editor. Is it animation? Yeah. We want no unit conversions, and I would like you to not mess with my stuff. So leg hip, sure, we can host it there, and this won't work, so we need to change. So this is the expression, and make that a little bit bigger. This is the expression that we had in the last episode. It's just the law of cosine to do a very simple V chain. We want to redo a few numbers, so we now want to get the sides, the length of the femur length and tibia length and stuff like this from here. These config parameters exists in different places, so I'll need its DAG path. And is there a right click to get the DAG path or something? So someone knows, spare me some typing, please. I want it like spelled out for me. It's a set statement that someone can do this off the top of their head. Will this work actually? So mdag path, no matching constructor file. So yeah, I should probably just get a no, don't do that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't need to instance this. This is a static method. So okay, config parameters. And I think that so can you comment in expressions? Yeah, surely you must be, because this is a mail script. I would expect this to work. We need that distance. Now, because we're limiting, we should be fine by literally, like, this is pre-limited. This plus minus average thing we found, so yeah, imagine that by getting the length of that. So there's no vector length, is it? To get a scalar out of two things, I can't just get the length of these. I have to yeah, I might have to get this again. I could do it by hand, but I don't want to. Like, as in, I could add it to the expression for this one instance. Let's get these done and named properly. So, see, this is one of the things that is bothering me because of the default library of nodes being so inadequate. This plus minus average is literally doing most of the operation required here. Anyway, let's not get bitter and let's instead do stuff. So this is gonna be leg L. For now, let's go for something like that. And don't really have a better name for now. We'll keep that. So now these parameters also need changing, and they are gonna be, wow, that's a lot more nodeling than I thought I would have been doing today. I misguidedly thought this would have been quicker. Femur length and tibia length. Now the other one we want is that, and we want, is the output gonna be called simply distance? Hopefully yes. And we want to go out, and this should be an non-ambiguous name right now. I think so. so we don't need the full DAG path for now, but this, I mean, this is just prototyping stuff. So let us, we say that vector add, so I forgot what we called A, B, and C and so on. Now this has A, B, and C, and it's the first one we solve. Oh, J2, so that helps. So I was about to say, I think that this is this angle here, because we would have named these A, B, and C, so this is the C angle. Let's say that we try it, and that's going to be quicker than wondering about things. And leg heap start, well, leg heap SRT, actually, we should be able to use that. So you never know what Maya is gonna do when you input a wrong expression, so I suggest I have a notepad up here. It's like nothing more than this. Keep yourself a copy and paste pad when you work with my expressions. Sure, create A is an undefined variable, so with these we don't need anymore. A is an undefined variable. Really? Okay, result expression one. Oh, okay, I had the paste in and did not have the, it did not have line termination, so I was throwing the parser off. So are we getting anything out of these? Not yet. Nothing that is interesting, at least. So we must have got an error of sorts. Huh. No, we haven't. So let me clear these. I mean, we can do these and go edit and see what happens. Yeah, result expression one, so that's okay. Now what are we doing here with these? We will definitely want to change what is affected by it. I'm not seeing it connected here, but that's just because I don't have the node inside. So all of this stuff is pinned. Let's get these at 0. No major reordering that I could see. But see how the view changed? That would have been a disaster if I did not pin those things. I don't care for the shading group. Thank you, Maya. And I do want to, from here, to widen by 1, please. Convert units. So I thought I said no. I thought I was pretty adamant about it, but I must have made a boo-boo. This expression is, so vector add, so this expression is pretty, I'm definitely getting the wrong thing here. So this might be an older expression I had from before. Cause no, that's correct actually, sorry. It's probably the right expression. So we have copied that. Might be quicker to delete these and redo it. I think you can turn off conversion on the fly and then get rid of. Okay, good to know. Somebody was saying you can turn it off on the fly. I was positive. I don't know if yeah, whatever. I don't know exactly what went wrong in that case, to be honest. If I just reopened the window and it decided to lose my settings. I was quite positive I had set it to not convert, but I might be mistaken. So we live and learn. Mostly to not trust UIs. Sure, nodes are okay somewhere in the hyperspace. So for those of you that don't know, when you see this thing, if you set expressions to always evaluate, and this is one of the reasons why people think expressions are slow, they will always evaluate. And the trick that Maya uses is it connects time to it. And it doesn't really use this parameter unless you tell it to, as far as I know. But what is happening is that this time is the node that actually and I think we went over that when we were talking about set-driven key, is the one that gets changed every time that you move the timeline. So this is literally responsible to dirty this expression all the time, and every time you change frame. I believe that in our case, because we have an input and an output that is fairly well formed, you could probably remove these and not have the problem. Let me save before I do that, but sure. And this you can delay, you can only remove it. But yeah, you can see the same thing. So if you don't want an expression that forcefully always evaluates, if you remove that time, then you should be good. And this reentrancy is like, this is a message, so it has no effect. You can leave it in there. Maya will do this kind of stuff to track what objects it's operating on and stuff like that. This is going to be all over the place. This is fine. If anything, if you want some relationship between objects that is purely expressive and not functional, as in it's just telling you something or you want to track something, messages are pretty good for it. They're intended for that. So we got that, and the angles are all wonky. We need to fix that next. But we are getting something that seems to be what you would expect. Yeah. Anyway, so what do we want to do here? We want to change around what rotations we're working on, clearly. So let's start by applying that to the right spot. So that's a TB start. I actually might have wanted to roll that on X, so that's probably fine. The heap start, however, so for the time being, just for the sake of editing these for a moment, we could do that. So with our aim, what do we have? Man, we will have our work cut out for us. And this is the classic silly thing that you do when you're debugging code, where you can just multiply something by 0, so you don't need to lose the code, and you don't suppress an operation if you're hunting down a bug. So we said, what did we say? That for the most part this is fine. It's like, this is so confusing, but we should be okay. So let's also hide these to not confuse matters more. It's not fine, actually, it's pretty terrible. How are we doing on time? Yeah, this is a little bit of a failure in some regards. I might have to do more work for these to, unless I'm doing something silly with the rotations. So that the lack of up vector is really biting us in the ass. I could suppress the Y component of the rotation and see what happens. But yeah, I was about to say, I don't think it'll do us any good. Because we should be able to, actually I'm stupid, not the Y that we will want to suppress. We can go by exclusion here, which is not a great way to work. But nah, yeah, I'll have to do more work in this. I'll have to figure out what I want to do. Oops. I'm also wondering if I'm actually just feeding it a very inconvenient. So that's the length node. Am I feeding it an inconvenient operation? Might have been freaking out for that. Okay, there you go. I was like, this doesn't make sense. So what I'm doing here is I've chosen minus y so that the angle that it has to solve is much, much smaller. So I'm asking it now to figure out the angle between these and that instead of these and that, which would have often been over the 180. So it would have to reduce, and that would have caused the flipping. There you go. I wish right away. I think at the beginning of it I said, you know, we're gonna use minus y, and then I left y in there. I'm an idiot. All right. Well, what do you know? We did not really have a problem conceptually. We just had one in execution. Because the comparison vector for the aim is parallel to the leg. So parallel is fine. It's a good question. So parallel is perfectly fine, especially when the two vectors are exactly the same. The angle between is 0, which is a state that we actually want. My problem with it is that we only care for the angle between is only really working well in a hemisphere, so in half of the rotational circles that are possible. And I say right away, you know, we're gonna do these and then these in the subtraction, which gives me a vector that is in this direction. I said, okay, that means that I probably want to diff. Like I want to find angle between minus y. Remember, vectors don't have a starting position. So between these, you know, minus y goes this way, and whatever this ik handle is gonna position these in. And we will still potentially have problems, like when you go up here, maybe. An argument for ACOX. I'm getting errors about the expression. I have to look at that. Doesn't matter just yet. So, but then I used plus y, which meant he had a long way to go around, and he was trying to, you know, it like this node is doing, I suspect, a little bit of black magic angle between in some cases. Because I've seen it solve things that in just the pure, you know, sine and cosine space would not have been possible. Possibly there's an A tan 2 in there, which is we're comparing sine and cosine and stuff like that, which can get you some mileage. But from vectors alone, you cannot get rotations past 180. There's nothing, you know, between a vector. Let's get this chief up. Between a vector going like that way, and if you have a rotation that is like that, that places your second vector there, the rotation as a Euler angle will know that it's greater than 180. But when you look at the pure vectors, like these will always be the angle. It doesn't really care, you know, whether it's going in this direction or in that, or it's doing that or whatever. It's just this unsigned angle, positive angle between the two. If you do it in the simplest possible way. Maya seems to be doing something a little bit smarter than that. Anyway, so that puts us in a much better place. And makes me feel like an idiot, to be honest, but that's okay. I'm used to that. Now, the next thing we want is... So this is getting 0 there. Let's start getting rid of these and see what we get. I imagine these will need some offset applied. So that is not terrible, actually. You know, we were negating some stuff and things like that. So if you look at the, you know, how equivalent these are, other than this initial rotation, which I suspect to be 90 degrees, we should be good. And that will be on the hip. Sorry, and it's just because we decided to align, you know, slightly different axes than we said. So it would be good to close the stream on a positive note. So minus or plus, I'm not gonna go and look at the... And, you know, ideally you would not want to do this. Ideally you will be a good person and actually figure out this number because it's a constant. but I'm gonna be lazy for now. So we probably want to add to it actually. There you go. So at this point, do we have discrepancies, or is it gonna be pretty close? Yeah, without moving the up vector, we're very, very close. So the angles are good. That's great. We should still see the same pop-in that we do with the native IK. Now, we will need to do some work because this is not doing all the clamping and stuff that we could be doing, so the expression will have a very tough time. It will fail and stop evaluating or something like that, and that will log you a lot of messages, and printing to text is actually very expensive, so we don't want crappy errors if we can avoid them. And I suspect that is when this goes completely flat. So yeah, sorry, I was looking, I have my script editor on the other side. So we're 1 hour in, and let me save. Less than I wanted to do, a lot less, but we ported the IK over, so that's good. And the next time we can start properly adding the up vector. So I guess today's episode was porting the IK sketch over to a like component, minus all the other things I said I would have done. If there are any questions, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm gonna go to work. Yet again, with IK, it seems that by default we get into anticlimactic end the stream, so you go like, oh, okay, you change that one number, and from completely messed up, it now works, and that's about it. So let me see what the stream lag is. Yeah, stream should be catching up to the request for questions. I will give it a minute, and if there are no questions, I will stop this. No, it's not really all that off topic. So someone asking, I had one question. I was doing a longish FK chain and ended up with quite a deep hierarchy of inheritance. Even in a case like that, would you try and keep the hierarchy shallow using matrix math instead of parenting? So if you have an FK chain, the point of these exercises isn't really like, intentionally keep your hierarchy shallow because a shallow hierarchy is better. It's, in some ways it kind of is, but it is not, a night and day situation kind of thing. The shallow hierarchy, in many ways, like this kind of thing, like for the component, this is as shallow as you want it, as far as I'm concerned, where you go like, I want all components, as far as the DAG hierarchy goes, to be peers. I don't like when the relationship between two components is implicit in the hierarchy, which is a very artificial construct. Like this is not at all how things work in general. Not under the hood when you get to the actual maths of it. But that's about it. So if in one component you have a really long chain because you're doing a tail, and and the animators want, like, the IK is a simple spline IK of sorts, and then they go, well, to get some similar curvature, we want 12 joints in the FK. Get 12 joints in the FK. And if something is only going to be used for FK, I mean, even all the things that I say, I don't do, like I don't use joint orients and stuff like that. I mean, they have their place. Nothing, the name Cult of Rig, for the record, has always been meant to be ironic. Nothing in here is dogma. Like, this is just, hey, most of the time you'll see it done another way. Here's how you can do it from first principles. And by the way, here's some counter current, in a way, thinking on how you can do it. It doesn't mean that any of these is right. It doesn't mean that you should take shallow hierarchies as a, you know, as a hard rule. Like never have a deep hierarchy. If you need 20 FK like 20 FK controls, you need, you know, you probably need like 40 transforms if you want them buffered, and it's perfectly okay. Like, anyway, so yeah, I would definitely not go out of my way to do that as flat everything. Also because the manipulation will be a mess. So especially if you're talking about FK control, like you're talking control, do whatever manipulates best for the animators, and feel free to have the output in a hierarchy without having to have, you know, 40 triplets of matrix transfer nodes to deal with it. So if there's nothing else, well, I gotta go to work, so I am done with this for the day, and I will be on again in a couple of days. If you follow the stream, if you're on YouTube, you'll see it when you'll see it. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a good morning, day, night, whatever it is over there, and I'll see you next time.